Oh man, now that is a horrible car. But is it the worst? These are the 27 worst cars only stupid people buy, that float, fly, and even roll over on command. I'm Brad, this is Ideal, like, subscribe, and let's go! And real quick, there's nothing like a little Huracan Performante V10 in the morning. Okay, if you've ever imagined yourself turning heads in a jaw-dropping supercar, you are in the right place. Sign up. Sign up for the Ideal Collective. Right now, it is completely free, and I've linked to it in the pinned first comment down below. And just by signing up, you'll be the first to know about the giveaway. Spots are limited, so sign up today. Again, it's in the pinned first comment, and now, back to the show. What a beautiful failure. On paper, this retro hot rod pickup truck had all the right ingredients to be a winner. Big ol' V8, a 6-speed manual gearbox, and the ability to do burnouts or just tear up your local drag strip on demand. But the timing, it was just plain wrong. Gas prices were going way up, and this truck cost a lot when new. And really, who wanted a truck that could seat only 2 and doesn't have any real truck capabilities? Plus, that styling, well, was something only a mother could love, which led to most people not seeing any real value in it. Richard Hammond loves his, but it's not for me.
Real quick guys, go check out the Ideal shop. Snag the new Retro Ideal tee, or help save the manuals with our best-selling Save the Manuals merch. Just follow the links in the description below.
The Cobalt came at a time when GM actually cared about performance cars that weren't Corvettes, and hence why they had the Cobalt SS with that screaming 2-liter Ecotec that was a pretty solid little car. But the base Cobalt was worse in pretty much every way compared to the car it replaced, the Cavalier. Brakes were 7-Eleven slushy, the acceleration was slow as molasses, electronics were unreliable, and it had steering feel that made a riding lawnmower feel planted. Then, to top it all off, there was the recall. Yes, the Cobalt was the main vehicle in the GM ignition switch debacle, where GM ignition switches would cut power, leading to crashes. Sadly, around 13 deaths were linked to this fault, and over 700,000 Cobalts were recalled. Now, the worst part is that GM actually learned of this issue and chose to continue building the cars with the faulty switches anyway, since it was less expensive to pay out on lawsuits than halt production. If you want to make people think you're compensating for something, well, drive an H2 Hummer. Now, you, me, and everyone else loves the Hummer H1. That was a true military-capable vehicle that had a license plate on it. The H2 was essentially a dolled-up Chevy Tahoe, meant to appear rough and tough like the H1, which led to one of the most impractical vehicles ever made. And because of the added weight and size, it was less off-road capable than the Tahoe it was based on. Plus, the image is absolutely repulsive to most onlookers. And the back seats are extremely small for its size. Like I said, it may be compensating for something. Polarizing designs aren't a new concept for BMW, but back in the early 2000s, the infamous E65 7 Series was released under the supervision of Chris Bangle. Bangle's rear end, or the car's rear end, was one of the most debated in history of automotive design. It was referred to as the Bangle butt, and it was a break from BMW design tradition. And after 20 years, it's still up for debate whether the chief of design got it right. But what's not up for debate is the iDrive system, which was introduced with this car. It was so complicated, it took the mind of a brain surgeon to figure out how to actually use the damn thing. Not intuitive. And that little joystick could take a lesson from a Nintendo 64 controller. It was kind of cool it had force feedback though. The Pontiac Aztek was inspired by this concept car. The Pontiac Salsa, baby. I mean, even the guy in the concept looks spicy. And yet, somehow in real life, the design was bulky, with clashing lines and angles that even the smash hit Breaking Bad couldn't make cool. Initially, it was aimed at a younger demographic, but the starting price point was just too high for young buyers. And while Pontiac was known for its sporty and performance-oriented vehicles, the Aztek was a wrong way departure from this image. The dagger though, it was just ahead of its time. because similar crossover vehicles launched a decade later and absolutely exploded in popularity. It had some really cool designs and features like the cooler in the tent, and with a better design and better timing, it would have probably been a Smash Mario Brothers hit. Hey, you, come here. Have you ever heard of the electric microcar called the Reva G-Wiz? It was a pioneer in the EV market. It was so small. It was considered a quadricycle, not a car in many countries, which meant crashing one was about as safe as a BMX bike. It was slow, had less than acceptable range, and the use of cheap materials throughout made Tesla build quality look premium. Gee whiz, I wonder why this was an automotive failure. The X-Type was Jaguar's first attempt to compete with the big dogs in the small executive car market. You know, the big BMW 3 Series and the big Mercedes C-Class. Okay, those weren't big, but, well, they sold a lot of them. But the Jag, well, it was built when Jag was owned by Ford, which was actually just built on the Ford Mondeo. It wasn't as pure as the Jags that came before it, and it felt diluted sharing a platform with an American car, or American Europa. Whatever. The new brand perception just didn't sit right with the British, or people buying these cars, and it was a sales failure. Easily one of the largest SUVs ever produced, and it was the definition of American excess. It could tow a house, it could seat 9+1, but after a few short years, the public had had enough. Influenced by shifting consumer preferences and environmental concerns, Ford discontinued the Excursion. Although it had a dedicated market segment, the changing automotive environment made its continuation untenable, similar to the Hummer's demise that we mentioned earlier. Guys, just look at this thing. The unconventional design, characterized by the split-level front end, bulbous shape, and 3 abreast seating? It's no wonder it won Top Gear Car of the Year in 1999, right? It was an innovative design that the automotive world never really asked for, but it certainly left an impression. 20 plus years ago, well, it's hard to convey just how excited everyone and their mom was about the PT Cruiser launch. There was a waiting line in every dealership. It was so incredibly popular. In fact, it won the 2001 Car of the Year, which still gives me nightmares. It turned out to be a complete dud, but there was a time it was the star of the show. Okay guys, love it or hate it, only 11,700 of these things were built. The Prowler could have been so much more, but when they stuffed a V6 from a Dodge Intrepid under the hood instead of a V8, all hope was lost. When the EV1 came out with subpar range and gas hovering Mas o menos $1 per gallon, it was a very hard sell. So much in fact that they would only lease them in a few cities across the country. But the car was a cutting-edge electric that nobody actually wanted. Demand was so poor they stopped actually making replacement parts, and GM took back all the leased EV1s and destroyed them. All except one. Yes, because film director Francis Coppola hid his and ultimately kept it. So now it's one of the rarest cars to ever come out of the 90s. I wonder if it works with the Tesla supercharging network. The X90 is the total class clown. On the road, handling gets less than a poor rating, but off-road with a 5-speed manual and true 4-wheel drive, it's actually pretty good and gets you further than you need to go. It's a real deal 4x4, but that's all it is. And it was so slow that you could read an entire Ideal Car Strategies before you get to 60 miles per hour, which you can go check them out, free workshop down below. I think you'll learn a few things. Okay, the newer ones were pretty much the universal cop car these days. So all of us sharing the road with you, it just adds unnecessary stress when you're rolling around. Secondly, the first gen Ford Explorers, well, those Firestone tires were some of the most catastrophic matches made in hell ever made. Yeah, that's hard to come back from. Okay, let's hit you with military-esque styling. Countach V12 shoehorned under the hood. Just total excess, but also totally awesome. Except, jump inside. The interior, button placements, mirrors, fuel door, radio. It's kind of like a Hummer you get off of Wish.com. Plus, just imagine trying to parallel park one of these beasts. Not gonna happen. The Yugo GV, standing for Global Vehicle, is the international symbol of compromised quality in the pursuit of affordability. While it had a brief moment of popularity, its lasting legacy in the automotive world is largely negative, though it holds a certain nostalgic charm for some. To each his own, I guess. These things take the cake for unreliable garbage, and yet there's just something about them that make it look so much more classy than a BMW 3 Series at the time. Maseratis are the cars that you date, you don't marry, but the bi-turbo, well, don't even give one your number. This car was a total flop, and it only gained notoriety because of the movies. They're extremely slow. The stainless steel bodies looked cool, and it was a lot like nothing else on the market, but the engine, it was lethargic, and the cost was almost as expensive as a real sports car. The doors, yes, the doors are awesome, except they all leaked. These are fun to look at, but nah, don't touch. From the worst Maserati to the worst Ferrari, it's the first practical Ferrari, and the design language was a huge departure from the curvy, voluptuous cars that came before it. It was chiseled, but it wasn't fast and it wasn't cheap. It's the Ferrari you don't want to show up in. Not just because of its looks, but because you won't actually make it there when you're going there because these things were super unreliable. The Reliant Robin, or a better name would have been the Reliable Rollover, it was a thing. It had 3 wheels to help it get around some regulations. And it was a microcar, so it used some motorcycle parts to keep things cheap. But man, these things were prone to rollovers. And easily one of the worst cars or 3-wheeled cars ever built. 180 horsepower. Yes, that is what the 305 cubic inch V8 put out specifically for the California market in 1980, which was way smaller than the 350 cubic inch V8 offered for the rest of the country. The 1980s were just a horrible time for horsepower, as emissions had a tight squeeze on the stables, and California specifically had even more stringent regulations. So while the 305 is a 1-year vehicle, it's not the vet you want. Corvettes and slow just don't go together. Yet for 1 year, 1980, they absolutely did. This thing was a piece of Chevette. Next. Let's take a step inside the Lagonda, and you will see the most futuristic 80s tech-forward interior you have ever laid your 2 eyeballs on. On the outside, the sculpted lines and triple headlights just work, even if it does kind of look like an anteater. But this Aston was an absolute electrical nightmare. This is the car you win playing poker and you just don't take your prize and walk home. Okay guys, that is not a DeLorean, even though it has the same doors that take 12 seconds to open. It was supposed to be one of the safest cars ever made, but it was one of the biggest busts in automotive history. It had a 175 horsepower V8 with a 3-speed automatic. And while it was almost as fast as a C3 Corvette, SV didn't stand for super veloce, it stood for safety vehicle. And while it was safe, it was not fun to drive. Here is how you ruin a Michelangelo masterpiece. Take one of the most beautiful cars ever made, XKE, and turn it into this. I just don't get it. Somehow they made it look like an AI render of the XKE we all love. It's as unfortunate as a botched nose job, or just maybe worse. The OG Pinto had a fuel tank in the back that wasn't, well protected, leading to explosions when hit from the rear. It then became a PR nightmare for Ford when it was